How does combat actually work in Civilization, Eras, and Allies? Well, in this video, sponsored by the makers of the game, I'm going to break it down for you in perhaps an overly simplified way so that you can make better choices for your heroes, for your hero combinations, the skills that you select, the armies that you build, and ultimately, you get value and smash your enemies, all right? Now, if you enjoy this style of content, consider subscribing. If you haven't already downloaded Civilization, Eras, and Allies, the link will be in the description, and using my sponsored link will support my channel. So let's get started here. Before we even look at the skills and a bunch of the more nuanced stuff, we got to talk about how combat works in Civilization, Eras, and Allies. So to do that, we're going to go look at a battle report, and we'll just go pick one saved report here where I'm battling a tile. This should be fine. We get a look here at the combat. This section is going to break down what actually happened over the course of the fight. And a fight is broken out into several phases. As you can see, the first thing that happens, it's turn 0, it's the tactical phase. In the tactical phase, there's a bunch of bonuses and buffs that are applied, ranging from like civilization bonuses that you see here to combat bonuses as well. Morale debuffs, the whole 9 yards. So all of that happens before any of the real fighting has started. All right. Then you get to turns, combat turns. So after the tactical phase, turn 0, there are combat turns. There are typically, I believe, 8 of them before you enter into a draw. I could find a report that has a draw. I've probably got one saved. Here we go. Let's get a look at this one. Yep, 8 turns before you enter into a draw. A draw happens if you haven't defeated all of the enemy's troops at the end of a conflict, or you have not been completely defeated. So what happens in each turn? Each turn, every one of your heroes will have an opportunity to act. Now, what's important is the order in which they act. It is based off of agility. And once your hero gets the opportunity to act, they will do a couple things. They will have a chance to use their active skills, and for those skills to trigger, it goes in order of their skills from left to right if you have multiple that could trigger in a single turn. And after their hero has had an opportunity to do their skills or trigger skills, they do what's called a basic attack. Now, you can see this in the log. Cleopatra has started. Cleopatra protected, target changed, and then they do a basic attack. We go over here, El Cid. They have several things that trigger from their skills, and then they do their basic attack. All right. You can see this hero, who I don't know how to pronounce. They had several of their skills trigger. Here you can see there's a trigger chance. It either did or did not trigger, and then they do their basic attack, right? So each hero goes in order of their agility, and it does 8 turns just like that. All right. And as I mentioned, the fight is ended when one side is eliminated, or if the captain dies. So now, these armies, as I've talked about in other videos, are in different positions. The army that's closest to the enemy is called the vanguard. You can see it here. Cleopatra, close to the enemy, the vanguard. The one in the middle is called the center, and the one furthest away is called the captain. And when you go one step toward the enemy, that is a distance of 1. So the distance from my captain to my center is 1. My captain and my vanguard is 2, okay? My captain to their vanguard is 3, right? My captain to their center is 4. My captain to their captain is 5. You get the idea. We covered this topic in a separate video, but it is worth mentioning here since we are talking about combat, all right? So with all of that context into the big picture overview of how combat works, now we can go look at the skills and talk about the different types of skills that there are. As you can see, and I'm sure you've noticed, there are engage, active, combo, and passive skills, 4 types of skills. Let's start with the engage skills, all right? An engage skill is used in the tactical phase. I just showed you that's turn 0. Now, those are going to take effect in order according to a hero agility. And if you were wondering where's hero agility, right, that's in the stats of the hero. So if we go in, you can see Sun Tzu over here hiding behind my head. Actually, not hiding behind my head. To the left of me is the agility. Higher the agility, the sooner you go. In fact, I can tap agility, and it's showing you that is the effect. Determined a hero's action order. All right. Back to the skills, Cheesy. Back to the skills. So an engage skill, as I was mentioning, takes place in the tactical phase, turn 0. It takes effect according to the hero agility. They cannot be erased, which is a powerful aspect of one of these skills. And engage effects of the same type only apply once. To give you an example of an engage skill, here's one: Precision Strike. During the first 3 turns, reduce the enemy's engage damage dealt, affected by Int. There you go. You can see the typing listed up top. Trigger chance is 100% for this particular skill. All right, now, next up, we have the active skills. So active skills have a % chance to trigger, typically, during battle, during each of the turns. Active skills cannot be used if you're silenced or stunned. The effects caused by active skills are combat effects, which can be removed by other skills with the erase effect. And combat effects of the same type are not going to stack. If an effect of the same type is better than the existing effect, it'll overwrite it and refresh the duration. It says all this here. I'm explaining it. Hopefully this is still helpful. I feel like all of the context is good here, but you can see if this skill, All Out Assault, is used potentially. Let me say it like this. If we put it on a hero, okay, in this case, I actually have it known by Mulan, right? When it is Mulan's turn, she will prepare for 1 turn, then deal damage to 2 enemies, and increase the target's combat attack damage taken for 2 turns. Now, this is one that has a 40% chance to trigger. You can see it underneath the type, which says active. It says the trigger chance. So it doesn't mean she's going to get it every single turn, but she could. This could trigger every turn if you get lucky with the dice rolls, right? Does this particular ability have a cooldown? I'm not sure that it does. Like, someone more experienced than me can sound off in the comments, right? But that gives you the basic idea of what an active skill is and how that kind of works, which now brings us to the combo skills. So combo skills happen after you successfully launch a basic attack. So remember when we broke down the way a turn worked, right? Heroes go through all the different active skills they might sort of trigger, and then they do a basic attack. So after you use a basic attack, heroes will cast combo skills, and typically there's a % chance, and you can even get multiple basic attacks, which might mean that you end up with multiple chances to trigger combo skills. Combo skills cannot be used when you're disarmed or stunned, because in that situation you aren't doing basic attacks, and effects caused by combo skills are combat effects that can be removed by an erase effect. Combo effects of the same type do not stack, and as was the case with the active skills, if an effect of the same type is better than an existing effect, it'll overwrite the previous and refresh the duration. Which brings us finally to the passive skills. These operate in a way that you probably would expect. They're skills that take effect during the tactical phase before the engage skills even happen. It's turn 0. They last for the entire battle. In this way, passive skills are very similar to an engage skill, but passive skills cannot be affected by control effects. They're also not triggered by agility order. Passive skills of the same effects cannot stack. They take effect according to the hero's order of actions. Subsequent effects of the same type cannot be added. And for what it's worth, so far on my journey, I've never seen a main skill that's a passive skill. Although, I don't know, actually, maybe I have seen 1 or 2. Have I? Okay, I made a note of this and now I'm reconsidering my notes. Anyways, there's more we gotta talk about. And for the overview here, I think this is good enough. I suppose I can show you one over here. This is Preemptive Strike. It's passive. It's got a 100% chance to trigger. Increase passive attack, defense, int, and agility. Act first each turn. So I can show you this on Cleopatra. I think I actually have a log with this that I saved. Here's a Cleo log. We go to combat. And as we scroll through here, all right, there it is. I just had to scroll down a little. Cleopatra's preemptive strike skill is in effect. So it happened right up top here. You see we got the morale bonus, the civilization bonus, the unit bonus, relic bonus, skill bonuses. There's preemptive strike on Cleopatra. There it is. All right. We got there. Anyways, let's go to another crucial topic for combat. And that topic is the inclination system. So there are 3 different classifications for an army. I got a lot of armies behind my head over here. There's survival, control, and damage. Those are the 3 inclinations. Your army's inclination is determined based on the hero skills and the unit skills, and you can put whatever you want on a hero, but whatever you have the most of is ultimately going to determine the army inclination. So you can see here that type listing, damage, that is the inclination. So we can click on the little question mark here to pull it up. In fact, this is what I wanted to show. The inclination system is a form of countering, all right? And each of these types counters another type. So now we can go over here and talk about this, right? So the skill inclination damage inclined skills refers to effects such as dealing damage, damage increase, combos, splash damage. Survival are skill effects related to healing, damage reduction, and evasion. Control inclined skills refer to skills such as silence, disorientation, and disarm. So the army inclination is determined by its skill inclinations, including the hero's main skill, learned skills, and unit skills. For example, if all of the skills in an army are damage, then this army will be considered a damage army. And there are inclination counters. When 2 armies are similar in strength, inclination counters play more critical role in determining the battle's outcome. Damage counters survival. Survival counters control. Control counters damage, which is what we were looking at over here in this chart. And this is telling you the skills and units, by the way, that made this a damage-related army. In this case, it gets the inclination purely from these skills. All right? So there is more to this. Although, look, I don't know the exact details of like how much the countering system influences the outcome of combat. You can kind of think of this almost like an advance warning system when you're considering attacking an opponent. If their army counters yours, think twice before running it in, okay? So now that you know the inclination system, the skill system, the way that combat is structured, there's one, I think, final category I want to talk about in the combat basics before probably I say, okay, this video is long enough. And let's just talk about some of the skill categories, all right? Because as you have noticed, heroes have all these different designations in the bottom left, like healing and buff, right? And what's that about? What does it mean? Cleopatra, buff. Miyamoto, attack. What's that about? Well, this is going to be a designation, okay, that indicates how they're going to typically scale. So as an example, an attack type hero is going to scale off of attack. You can see his attack stat is through the roof because of this. All right. And so you can also see that on his skills here. Deal attack damage to 2 enemies. The damage rate is listed. Okay, maybe this is not the best example, but often skills will scale based off of a stat, and that is listed in the skill. To give an example of an intelligence-based hero, here's Sun Tzu. He's healing and buff as well, but you can see that he typically does int damage. So he's got skills that are int damage focused. So here it'll say he actually does either attack damage or int damage to a random enemy based on which stat is higher for this skill. He's going to have higher int damage. Anyways, heal rate is affected by int. Combat damage taken over here affected by int. All right. Now, healing type skills are going to restore troops' durability. For allies, in some cases, can cleanse debuff, and it's scaling typically with int. And then buff type skills increase stats or grant effects to your army. So an example will be attack buffs, defense buffs, int buffs, agi buffs, damage buffs, active skill damage, damage taken reduction, heal boost, crit rate. There's a ton that are considered buff skills. So Sun Tzu is kind of a heck of a hero to show here because he is an int-focused healing and buff type hero with a range of 4. So the priority for his skill types are going to be int, damage, healing, engage, and buff skills. I wanted to mention this because when you think about like, okay, Chiskel, you told me the types of skills that exist. How do I know like what skills to put where? It's in part because of the stats the hero has and the stats that the skills care about. And the clue there will be the hero typing that it'll show you over there. And also the way the skill is scaling. And like you get the line up there and there you go. You're off to the races. Gosh, there's so much I want to talk about. I kind of want to talk about debuffs. There are so many of them. Does this become the ultimate new player guide for combat in Civilization Eras and Allies? I don't think we're there. But there are control effects for debuffs, stat reductions, damage over times. There's other debuffs like rout, burn, punish, revolt, heal block. I made note of damage over time effects. There's so many of them. Impair does attack damage over time. Panic does int damage over time. Rattle does int damage over time, but applies at the end of each turn instead of the start of your own turn. Scorch, you take int damage over time applied at the start of each turn. There's so many of these. The control effects. Disarm makes so you can't use basic attacks. Disorient makes it so that enemy attacks or when they apply effects will do so randomly, including hitting their own team. Exhaust means you can't deal damage. Silence means you can't use active skills. Stun means you can't act. Taunt means all basic attacks target that one hero. Stat reductions. Bro, there is just so much to talk about. So I guess we cut short all these notes that I have on what I wanted to say about combat. Let's get to the point. How do we apply all this stuff to make a solid PvE or PvP lineup? And from everything we saw above, in my opinion, survival armies have a better chance to sustain against control armies. I mean, it's not just my opinion. Like, that's how the inclination system works. And there's a lot of debuffs in the game, especially in Season 1. And this is one of the reasons, especially as a beginning player, that you really should build a good survival army early in the game. This will help you push tiles faster, boost your production faster, and counter all of these effects that you're going to encounter in PvP. All right. Now, I've talked about really outstanding armies in a separate video. I'll have a card in the end screen if you want to go check that one out. But to give a sample of a really good survival combination of heroes, you'd use Lepidus Captain, Sun Tzu Center, who I have here, and then Cleopatra as your Vanguard, who I also have. I just don't have Lepidus! Darn it. But anyways, if you want to see why those 3 heroes, spoiler alert, are in my list of some of the top new player early game Season 1 heroes, check the card in the end screen. Thank you again to the makers of Civilization Eras and Allies for sponsoring this video. Until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies.